Hi, welcome to Alternatively Speaking. I'm JJ, the Practical Alchemist, and today we're talking about slowing down our pace of life, slowing down the way we eat, preparing our food. Yeah, we don't have to live life so fast. And when we do slow down, things can really happen to improve our lives. So, to talk with me about that is my dear friend Sarmado Sibley, who's a plant-based chef, coach. He really makes the most divine food, but he's also very well versed in spiritual matters, and he's a great coach for people who want to shift things in their life and also shift the way they eat. So, without further ado, I give you my chat, which I recorded recently with Sarmado Sibley. Sarmado, it's lovely to have you back on the show again. And I know that we've talked about this before, but it's come up again and again and again, and I think it bears talking about again, and that is how we need to really be getting back to, I'm not going to say basics, but to living a life which actually supports our bodies and supports our mental health and our spiritual health and our emotional health. And that is, well, let's talk about that. It's getting away from the fast living that we are all used to now, including fast food, isn't it? So let's just talk about that for a little bit. You know, in the past, for instance, we would take the time, and I think that's a crucial part of the piece, isn't
Hmm. Yeah, well, it's good to see you again, Jen. And
it?
and
Thank you.
yeah, we've kind of touched on this so many times in past talks here on the show. But in terms of the food and the nutrition to take us forward, we are inundated, and there's so many distractions out there. And when it comes to actually giving your body the right ingredients to sustain yourself, um, and to maintain, just a balanced equilibrium. Taking time to eat and having the presence is one of the easiest and most simple things that you can do with your food, because there's, millions of different supplements, so many protocols and approaches to diet that we can take on. But, you know, taking it back to the beginning, if we look at some of the cultures or countries where they're actually taking the time to stop, i.e., the business is closed for an hour at lunchtime or a couple of hours if it's the Mediterranean, or eating late afternoon, early evening with a group of friends or with your family where you're actually sharing time together, then food is not only your fuel to get you to the next task, but it's actually something that's pleasurable, it's enjoyable. You get to digest not only the food, but your own personal experience of the day and the friends and the people you're surrounding yourself with. There's an interaction that happens when you come together over the table. And if you're eating quickly or you're eating in a rush, you're multitasking, i.e., you're trying to eat your lunch, but you're doing emails at the same time, or you're on the computer or on the phone, or something else is going on in the background. You're not actually consuming the food. You're
Mm.
not present with it. And the simplest thing is to take the time out, because when you're putting the petrol in the car, you're not on your phone at the same time as you're filling the tank up. You're really present with that process. And the same thing should be applied to our food. Um, and those cultures where they live to long years, the centenarian places in the world, they stop and they share their food and they make time for it. And then everything else comes afterwards. Because if you're digesting the food really quickly and you're stressed while you're eating, well, the rest of the day is going to be stressful too.
Yeah, I think it is so. overlooked today. And we all talk about blue zones, right, where people do live until their hundreds, um, and routinely, not everybody, obviously. And we hear about how we should eat fresh, organic food, and yeah, that's all great. But really, we don't put so much emphasis on taking time. And you're so right. And I must admit that this morning I was breaking my fast. Well, it was about midday. I was breaking my fast, and somebody rang me. And what I should have done was say, I'll call you back. And I didn't. And I ate my food while I was talking to her. I did say, by the way, I'm going to start eating in a second because you just called me in the middle of me making something to eat. But I should have just said, no, I'll call you back. That would have been the better thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Back in the day, I remember there were businesses here in England that would close at lunchtimes. You
Yeah,
know,
I remember that. Yeah.
I know that not all businesses can close for an hour or to stop, but in terms of your health and your wellness, you're going to find it much more achievable to get through the rest of the day or to complete your tasks when you've digested the food properly. Because if you haven't digested the food properly, everything else that follows on after that, you're not going to be able to digest that either.
Mm.
You're not going to be able to assimilate the new information or the new things that are coming at you to deal with, because your energy and your resources, your physical resources, are being used to break down what you were so stressed and hurried about before, which was swallowing your food to get to the next task. It's like,
Yeah.
but, you know, it's a tricky one because everything is set up for convenience right now. So even in the supermarket, as an example, if you go there, you've got your ready-made meals, you've got your frozen meals, you've got your tins and your cans and your packets, and everything's all pre-prepared so that you can knock together something to eat in less than 5 minutes. And usually when something's been prepared in a hurry as well, you're going to consume it in a hurry. It's like you never hear of anybody having a leisurely lunch in a fast food restaurant.
No, not really.
You go in there, get your fix, and you're gone in 10
Yeah.
minutes,
Yeah.
you know? And so a lot of the things, whether it's something like fermentation and sourdough bread, as an example, that takes days to create a really good sourdough, you know? And when it is a really good sourdough, it's not heavy on the digestion. It
Yeah.
supports the gut health. It's got beneficial bacteria in it, and you feel light, you don't feel bloated. And so, wherever we can, if we can slow down the process of the preparation and the eating, it will benefit us much more greater than buying the latest superfood or supplement, which again, we're just going to swallow and jump to the next task.
Oh, that's so true. And there was a slow food movement that got some traction a while back, but I don't hear so much about that anymore. Was what
Mm.
happened to that?
I'm not too sure, but I'm glad you mentioned that because I went to the convention, which was in Turin. I went there with my dad actually over a decade ago, and there was separate, you'd have one area which was artisanal dairy, and then another area which was bakery, and another area which was olive oils and wines. And it was spread out across a large expanse of the city. But that slow food movement was around the preservation of ancestral
Yeah.
cooking techniques, certain foods that were in danger of becoming extinct, because around that time when the slow food movement was born, a lot of these traditional methods of food preparation were being eradicated in favor of fast food production, which I bring back sourdough again. If you buy a sourdough loaf in a supermarket, most often it hasn't gone through that slow fermentation. they've added flavorings to give the bread a sourness to it.
Mm.
And the gluten hasn't been broken down because they'll still make it in a very rapid way. But the slow movement actually was able to classify certain foods as being literally like under a preservation order.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Area of origin kind of thing as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, we can see it now. There is a reversal or a returning to very natural ways of food production. I see it quite strongly now in the natural wine movement. I don't know if you've ever come across that, but that's got huge traction at the moment, and it's small producers of wine that are um, growing vines organically, biodynamically, without the intervention of chemicals and additives to wine, so that they are produced naturally and they're clean. They don't contain chemicals. Um, and in small amounts, they have health benefits.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have come across that, and before I stopped drinking alcohol altogether, some years ago, I
mm,
would always seek out wine that was either organic or natural, because many people might not realize that there are a lot of things that go into just general wines, mass produced wines that aren't entirely natural.
yeah, absolutely. Sulfites are being, that's a particular additive that they put into wines, like many things, to increase the shelf life. Is a contributor to headaches and migraines,
Yeah.
afterwards, because it cannot be broken down in the body, or it's very difficult to break it down. Um, and natural wine in its cleanest form contains, particularly red wine, within the skin of the red grape, contains resveratrol, which is beneficial to the heart.
And polyphenols as well.
Polyphenols, exactly,
Mm.
and polyphenols can be found in olive oil. There's certain estates in Europe where you can get olive oil, which is high in polyphenols.
Yeah.
But then it kind of goes back on what you shared before, Jen, about the slow food movement.
Yeah.
These are designated protected areas of olive groves
Yeah.
where they're using traditional techniques and traditional methods of farming. So
Yeah.
you really have to get beyond supermarkets. We need to get to farms or farmers markets or small producers. And it's growing exponentially. There's
Yeah.
phenomenal amounts online.
Yeah, it is growing. You're absolutely right. It's really growing, and it's something that we both talk about a lot. But it bears repeating. That go for the small producers who are growing food, producing food which has got very little additives in it, if any at all, because they don't have to have stuff sticking around on a shelf for ages or being transported from pillar to post for a long time. So they don't need to have any of those preservatives and additives in them. So that's one of our best bets if we want to eat clean food. Yeah. In fact, I was talking to one of those producers the other day, and I said, I think I'm beginning to cook food like my grandmother did,
Yeah,
because I'm just cooking things that take a bit longer, but I'll cook it in a pressure cooker, and sort of cuts of meat or vegetables that just would be unthinkable in the fast food culture, but they are a rich source of all different kinds of nutrients. um and I just cannot believe how far we've come away from that. And I think about people I see a lot of things online from people in the US talking about our restaurant culture, for instance, in Europe, and saying how they don't get good service. Well, actually, not being bothered every 5 seconds by a server to be asked, are we okay? in my view, is good service because it allows us to relax, to rest, and digest, as
Mm,
you said. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, and I think going back on what you were sharing about cooking like your grandmother, um, I think there's more appreciation if the cooking time is slower and you've had to
Yeah.
wait for it.
Mm,
That's
yeah.
that's the thing. And so that's how we had a relationship with food in the past. And it's not, that still goes on in many places now. Um, but if you can just grab it and satisfy that craving in that moment, then the appreciation's not there.
Yeah.
You know, it will fill
Yeah.
a hole, it will satiate you, but then it's on to the next thing. And um, the quality of the produce, it doesn't have to be an elaborate meal with 20 different ingredients. And it's not a Michelin star meal every time you come to eat. I mean, nobody can
No.
eat like that, but just the provenance of where your food comes from. And, you know, you say you can't believe how far we've come. I think it's going to take a long time for us to get back to the way we were. But there's a huge emergence now where we're seeing, this summer in particular, I've spent a lot of the time visiting parts of England, whether it's a food outlet, whether it's a producer, whether it's a restaurant or a cafe or a farm. There is a lot of proponents out there who are really advocating for high quality ingredients
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
growing of them. And what surprised me was the amount of people that are willing to spend their money and invest in that now is is quite radical to where we were a few years ago. I think people are trying to move their money away from the conglomerates and support local businesses because that's where it's at. Um, and in terms, our health's only going to improve.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. And, we have a similar resurgence where I am. You're down in the southwest. I'm in Scotland on the east coast, and it's beautiful to see. We have a huge resurgence. However, it can't be it can't be ignored the fact that a lot of the produce then is more expensive because it isn't being grown or produced on a grand scale. So there aren't economies of scale necessarily. However, we all eat a bit too much anyway, don't we? I
Yeah,
mean, from where I'm sitting, we need to just eat a bit less, but eat better.
yeah. And so nutrient dense meals where you have high quality produce that is rich in minerals, vitamins, and the enzymes. Um, we don't need to eat so much food. When you look at the UK, it has a huge obesity problem,
Yeah.
and a lot of that obesity doesn't come from um, the overconsumption of food, but it's the overconsumption of poor quality food because the stomach or the gut is sending a signal to the brain that it actually wants more food.
Yeah.
Whereas in truth, it doesn't actually want more food. It's crying out for more zinc or iron or
Yes.
magnesium. It's crying out for the minerals. So the knee-jerk reaction is to take another piece of cake or bread or whatever that item is and try and satiate that craving with the bulk of food. But actually, if we're narrowing our kind of shopping list into higher quality produce, although it may cost more, we don't need to eat so much of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a great example of that, not that it was something which I bought, but foraged. And
Mm.
that was sea spaghetti, which is a seaweed
Yep.
high in nutrients. And the first time I cooked that fresh, and I had a very simple sauce with it. It was a garlic, sort of creamed garlicky kind of a dressing, just very simple,
Mm.
absolutely delicious, I might say. And a small plateful, I didn't want anything else after that.
Mm.
Absolutely not. I didn't need anything because it was so nutrient dense.
Yep. And that's what we need, because seaweed in particular contains many minerals that we can't find from other food sources.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you buy produce in a supermarket, it's been picked, it's been transported, it's been packaged, and it could be days, if not weeks, before it actually ends up cooked and on a plate. And here at the moment, you know, we've just started the month of September. We've got blackberries in abundance. We've got rose hips out there. The elderberries are out there. We've got nettles. There's burdock root, which is growing. Mushroom season is
Mm-hmm.
imminent. It's about to start any moment. So we can supplement our food choices.
Yeah.
But let's say that food bill's going up, we can supplement for what nature is providing freely.
Yeah, that's a message that I'm always banging on about.
Mm,
Absolutely. Yeah. And
yeah.
just going back to that seaweed, where did I get it from? Less than a mile away
Mm,
on the shore here. Now,
mm,
not everybody lives near the sea in the UK, although we're never that far away from the sea, and not every beach or area is appropriate for seaweed foraging. However, there are opportunities to do that kind of thing if we look for them.
yeah, absolutely. If we look for them, if that's really what we want to do, because when you have that abundance that nature's providing, there are ways of working with those foods where we can preserve them over the months. You know,
Yeah.
we've got winter, autumn, winter coming ahead. So you can dry those seaweeds. You can turn them into powders. You
Mm-hmm.
can add them into breads and cookies and soups, and you can add them to salad dressings. And that's just seaweed. But whilst the berries are out, you could be freezing those or pureeing them, you know, turning them into compots and freezing them. It, you know, it's an opportunity for us to get back and remineralize our bodies with wild grown foods that are grown in soils, most, you know, hopefully in quite isolated places. So they're not, you know, they haven't been sprayed. There's no
Yeah.
nasty chemicals on them, because you always want to be foraging away from the roadside.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's there and it's available for us, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just that reconnection to not only the land that's hopefully local to us where we're foraging the ingredients, but also what is seasonal. And, you know, I've spoken in the past briefly on macrobiotics, and part of the macrobiotic approach was to only be eating what is local to your environment. And now in this month, we have nature giving us an abundant harvest, which can really support us and help us flourish through the autumn and winter.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And so, uh, both of us, I would say, would urge anybody listening to this to go out and see what you can forage. And don't be scared. If you're worried about whether something is edible or not, Google might be your friend there. You can just check it out. And there are apps that will allow you to identify what you're looking at in terms of plants in the wild. So, you can do it quite safely, but just do take care, and especially with mushrooms, take
Oh,
care
yeah.
with that. I would recommend you go with somebody who knows. I was going to say knows their onions, but yeah, no, that
Take
that
an expert.
take an expert exactly. Um, well, Sarmado, thank you so much for this today. Now, you often run courses and workshops and things like that. All those details for have you got something coming up now? All those details will be on your website, won't they?
They will. They will. So you can find all the events and classes and trainings happening on the website, which is sarmadosibley.com.
Brilliant. So that's where to go for that. And so thank you so much. And, one of these days we'll all get back to where we need to be in terms of our nutrition and our food and our lifestyle and, making sure that our immune systems are working properly. But for now, thank you so much, Sarmado. And for anybody watching this, everybody watching this, I should say, on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoy this kind of content, do like and share and subscribe to the channel. Let me know that you're out there and that you want to see more of this kind of thing. And hopefully Sarmado will be back another time. But for now, thank you so much again for being here with us to the end of this. And we'll see you later. And so goodbye from me and Sarmado.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, everyone.